Welcome and good evening. This is The Truth is Simple. I'm Dave Corum, your host, and today is September 26, 2023. It's hard to believe we're already on our third episode, but we're here. Today we're going to talk about values and morals, and this is going to build off a little bit off of last week's podcast. We talked about conformity. So if you haven't seen that, I'd ask you to go back and give that a quick look after you watch this. And we're going to talk about an incident that happened here in Las Vegas about 2 weeks ago. If you've watched the national news at all or followed along, you probably got it on your news feed if you get that off your cell phone and so forth. The murder of the retired police chief of Bell, the city of Bell in California. His name was Andreas Probst. He was 64 years old. There was two juveniles who had stolen several cars that day. I think it was a Sunday, if I'm not mistaken. Don't hold me to that. But they were driving, looking for people to hit. They hit I think it was 72-year-old gentleman prior to that on the bike. He survived, thank goodness. But Probst didn't fare quite as well. In fact, the two juveniles at the time, one of which is now 18, Jesus Ayala, made a comment to the police when he was being arrested a week later that he was going to be out by the end of that week. The two juveniles are now being tried in adult court, not juvenile court. The second gentleman, or juvenile, not really a gentleman, he just murdered somebody and laughed about it. Jzamie, Key, 16, he videotaped both of the hit and runs, and the hit and run and the murder run, and then went to school and started to show it to his friends and so forth at school. And that's how they pretty much found him and caught him. Both these juveniles were living off the high life because of no consequences. Our country, our cities, our district attorneys, our state legislatures, like in Illinois, which just passed, and I think it just went into law and is now running, of a no bail system. So no matter what you're basically arrested for in Illinois, you're able to sign your name to a piece of paper and get out with no consequences until you go back for whatever your next court hearing is. And then at that time, who knows what the judge is going to do? Leave them out on their own or put them in custody? It's kind of silly, right? It's just endangering us citizens, and there are no consequences. Just like Jesus said in this instance, I'm going to be out by the end of the week because he's a juvenile with an arms-long criminal history already, and that's all that's happened to him in the past. Why is he going to think any different? I'm 17 when I commit this. I'm still a juvenile. They're not going to do anything to me. And there you go. There's the mindset. There's the conformity that our government and our prosecutors and our state of mind and our parents and everything have put in place. It wasn't this way when I was in law enforcement 22 years ago. 3 strikes was huge then, and criminals that committed a third strike, they went away basically for life, at least in California. Half of those, or 2/3 of those, are out of prison in California now because Governor Newsom released them all. Yes, thank you very much, Governor Newsom. And now crime in California is at the highest it's been in probably 50 years. It's crazy. How do we change this? Well, there's 2 things we need to do. One, we as parents, teachers, I was a teacher as well, have had their hands tied. Schools, principals, which have had their hands tied. And law enforcement, police officers who have had their hands tied need to be able to be responsible and take action against these. Same with district attorneys who have, by law or by election, surrendered that conformity of protecting the law-abiding citizen to giving freedom to the criminals who are just going to commit more and more crime. This also starts at home. So the morals and values that our parents teach us, and I understand that a lot of parents might be single parents, so there's some issues there. Through some training and some help and some by going to your church and so forth and so on, there's a lot of free services out there that can help, other than government, that can help you raise your kids and help you get the education, the knowledge, and the training you need to better raise your kids. So I know it can be hard if you have 2 jobs and your kids come home at night and by themselves from school and they're there for 2 or 3, 4 hours until you get home. That's a challenge. But there are programs in play that can help you to get your child in the place they need to be to get the right morals and values. So you need to come alongside with a church or a community organization that can do that with you and for you. As far as our government, we as voters, um, we can't just give our vote away because there's a R or a D or a I or whatever letter in front of that person's name. You need to take the time and to investigate and study who that person is who's running for office. We just can't afford to give away our freedoms. We can't afford to let the country be destroyed by these criminals and so forth. Uh, I agree that it would be nice to have zero prisons, a population of zero in the prisons. I would think that would be a utopia. But unfortunately, there are those who do not have the morals or values, either through their parents or through some kind of church or through some kind of educational program that will take them on the right path to be just one of the citizens, law-abiding citizens that so many of us are. So, with that said, we have two things. One, we need to help our kids by being better moderators of their time and who and what they're doing and seeing and what they're reading and looking at on their cell phones. Um, Huge. On the computer, on the TV. We used to do that. We don't do that anymore. And we need, as parents, to go back and correct that. As parents, we need to take control of our educational problem and our teachers and tell the school districts, this is what we expect out of you. Teachers should be able to, they have them for 6, 7, 8 hours a day. The school has them for that many hours a day. They need to be able to take corrective action to make sure that that kid is abiding by the rules of the school and just common sense rules about how do you respect people. Respect has been freely given, and that's something that's not freely given. Respect, in my mind, is always something that needs to be earned. So, with that said, you may not have liked what I said, and as my title block says, and the one at the end says, sometimes the truth hurts. But it is the truth. We need to start taking care of our kids by teaching them. Maybe it's the community needs to go and teach them what we need to do as citizens, law-abiding citizens and citizens that give back to our community, rather than the deterioration of our civilization, of our country, of our cities, from all the crime that's occurring. This normally goes in waves. It happened before in the United States. If you look back in history, and I encourage you to go back and look back at history of the United States. But crime goes in waves, and we're in one of those time waves where, unfortunately, government, those in office as before, and when it happened, have repeated the same effect, causing the same effect to us as citizens. Hopefully in 20 years or so, 25 years, it'll be totally reversed. And then it'll flow back the other way again and flow back the other way again, just like it always does. But how do we get by this? Just like I said, vote right. Take care of your kids, know what they're doing, what they're reading, what they're seeing, and who they're hanging out with. And with that said, we're done for this week. Have a great week, and we'll see you next week here on The Truth is Simple. And if you have any comments or want me to talk about something, please leave a message somewhere down on the chat line. I'll give that a look-see and maybe give you a little ring back or something on the chat line, and we'll take that into consideration for next week. Have a great week. Take care. Bye-bye.